to announce that our office will be filing charges against Nick Reiner, who is accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and photographer-producer Michelle Singer.
Steven Spielberg and Rob Reiner have always felt like parallel constellations in the same sky, two artists charting different courses, pulled by the same gravity of story. Spielberg builds worlds that swallow you whole, turning awe and fear into a single breath. Reiner, with a lighter touch and a sharper knife, carves into the places where humor, friendship, and private heartbreak overlap. Different lanes, same obsession, and for decades their paths crossed in the easy air of screenings, guild banquets, and late-night conversations where love of cinema needed no translation. That's why the sudden ripple of alarming rumors about Reiner hit Spielberg like a body blow.
Nick attended Conan O'Brien's Christmas party Saturday night with his parents, Michelle and Rob. Maybe Nick was not invited to Conan O'Brien's party. He was wearing a hoodie. Reports are that he was acting weird, apparently accosting celebrities outside. Nick reportedly stormed off in a huff after a tiff with Bill Hader of SNL and Barry at Conan's Christmas party, and that Rob had been telling people, friends, that they were scared for Nick and scared for his mental state, that it was deteriorating.
For a moment, there was only static, texts lighting up, headlines phrased like obituaries, the sick recognition of how fast misinformation can bloom into dread. Just weeks earlier, at a small industry party where the laughter came easy, Spielberg had stood beside Rob while he spoke with clear, unperformed joy about his son, Nick, about the work, the progress, the painstaking walk back to solid ground. Hope had texture that night. You could see it on Rob's face. The rumors proved false. Relief arrived, but it didn't erase the bruise. When Spielberg finally addressed it, he did so like a friend first and a filmmaker second. He called Reiner a companion on the same long road, a storyteller whose films made people feel seen.
What I feel after all of this is it's not about punishing. If somebody is struggling and has difficulties, you don't punish them for that. And I think a lot of these programs feel like the kid is being punished. And I don't think that's a great way to go. You're a parent and you think, here's my kid running out into the street, he's going to get hit by a truck. You want to keep him.
The words were simple. The feeling wasn't. You could hear the scrape of anger under the sadness, at the morbid speed of the internet, at how easily the human being gets lost in the headline. He talked about beginnings. Two young men at the door of Hollywood, hungry and determined. He talked about a respect that never dimmed. When he named the films, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Stand By Me, he didn't recite credits, he remembered encounters. Laughter turned into meaning, friendship put on film and made permanent. Filmmaking isn't just art, it's connection, he said, and you felt the sentence land. Then he let a private memory breathe. Years earlier, at a relaxed house gathering where old stories moved around a room like warm air, Spielberg had noticed Rob off to the side, quiet in a way that didn't match the volume of the night. He walked over and asked if everything was all right. Reiner hesitated, then led him to a balcony where the noise thinned into a faraway hum. There, with the sky like a closed lid, Rob spoke softly about Nick, the struggle, the treatment, the guilt that stalks a parent who wants to fix what love alone can't fix. He spoke about pouring pieces of that pain into being Charlie, trying to turn chaos into something that might help, if not heal. For a while it worked, Rob said, and the hope inside the sentence shook. Now it feels like we're back in the storm again. Spielberg listened. He told Rob he'd done what fathers are supposed to do, show up, stand steady, love without conditions, but Reiner's eyes stayed on the dark. Sometimes we listen too much to doctors and not enough to our son, he said, and in that one line you could hear the whole war, expertise versus instinct, plan versus the stubborn physics of addiction. They sat for a while and let the truth be heavy. Some conversations end even after the talking stops. That one never did. Time moved. In October 2025 at the Governor's Awards, Spielberg saw Reiner across a crowded room, smiling, truly smiling, and felt something unclench. They hugged like brothers who knew each other's weather. "You look great," Spielberg said. "How are you?" And Rob, eyes bright in a way Spielberg hadn't seen in years, said the words he'd been waiting to hear. "Nick's home. He's better. He's working, talking, living, clean for months." The warmth that hit Spielberg's chest wasn't theatrical. It was relief with both feet on the floor. They drifted to a side wall and talked the way old friends talk. Actors to watch, projects they might never make but loved imagining. And the optimism in Reiner's smile felt earned. Later, when another round of headlines arrived, and the internet did what the internet does, Spielberg found himself in a quiet room with The Princess Bride playing softly. "As you wish," floated out of the speakers, and he whispered it back, a small prayer disguised as a line reading. When he finally put a public message on paper, it was careful and human. No speculation, no grand gestures, just gratitude for a life's work and respect for a family's right to hold their own story. Truthfully, Spielberg and Reiner were never the coffee every Tuesday kind of friends. Their bond ran on a quieter current, mutual admiration, shared roots, the knowledge that storytelling, done with care, outlives all of us. Both men grew up in Jewish homes where humor, conscience, and curiosity sat at the table with dinner. Reiner gravitated to the human scale. Friendships tested, love argued into clarity, fear given shape and gently walked through. Spielberg aimed for the horizon, and then held the close-ups long enough to remind you that all spectacle ends at the human face. He often praised Reiner's gift for everyday truth. Reiner praised Spielberg's ability to make feeling visible. In a town that spits out superlatives by the pound, those quiet exchanges still carry real weight. So what makes Spielberg Spielberg? Light and shadow used like verbs. Sound that pulses at the same rhythm as breath. Frames staged so cleanly that emotion has nowhere to hide. And underneath, a biography that left fingerprints all over the work. Stephen Allen Spielberg was born in Cincinnati on December 18, 1946, to Arnold, an electrical engineer who spoke fluent machine, and Leah, a pianist who made the air feel warmer just by sitting at a bench. He was the eldest, the only son, the one who watched, then translated what he saw. Because of Arnold's career, the family moved constantly, boxes as frequent as birthdays. Every move scraped off the top layer of comfort and left him with skills that don't come from ease. How to read a room, how to be quiet long enough to hear what people actually mean, how to make a world for yourself when the one outside keeps changing shape. At 6, he saw Cecil B. DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth and left the theater with a sentence most kids don't have. "I want to make things that scare people and make them feel joy." Leah told him to learn to tell stories first. At 12, Arnold handed him an 8mm camera, and he started doing exactly that. Toy trains crashing, sisters playing victims, fear turned into something he could stop and rewind. Phoenix brought sun and open space, and a loneliness he's spoken about without varnish. The bullying he endured as one of the few Jewish kids carved empathy into him. You feel it later in the way his films protect outsiders and treat childhood like a country worth defending. By 13, he'd shot Escape to Nowhere, a 40-minute war yarn that won a youth competition. At 16, he made Firelight, a 2-hour sci-fi dream that screened to a handful of people, but felt to him like a promise. One day, crowds would line up. Around that time, a wound he would carry for years opened quietly. During a family trip, he accidentally filmed his mother, Leah, holding hands with his father's best friend. He closed the camera on the moment and kept the secret. When his parents divorced, Arnold absorbed the blame so Leah wouldn't be exposed, and Stephen turned the anger he didn't yet understand toward his father. It took years, many films, and the adult vocabulary of forgiveness to unwind what really happened. That knot, love and resentment living in the same chest, beats at the heart of the Fabelmans, and echoes through the father-son gravity in everything from E.T. to Saving Private Ryan. The industry took notice early. In 1968, Amblin turned heads at a festival and opened a door at Universal. He slipped through it, slept in the work, and at 22 signed a contract that made him the youngest director on the lot. Television came first, Night Gallery, Columbo, then Duel, a nerve saw of a TV movie that made critics sit up. The first feature was The Sugarland Express. Then Jaws happened, and the map of the business redrew itself. The mechanical shark failed, the ocean misbehaved, the schedule got chewed to the bone, and somehow he delivered a film that taught studios what a summer blockbuster even was. He kept proving he wasn't one thing. Close Encounters treated wonder like a serious emotion. E.T. turned suburban ache into myth. Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan took on history with eyes unblinking and hands extended. In 1994, he co-founded DreamWorks and shifted between producing and directing without losing the pulse. Later work, Munich, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, West Side Story, showed a filmmaker who could change tools without changing the hand that holds them. His private life stayed private even when the press tried the opposite. He married Amy Irving in 1985, welcomed their son Max, and parted with care rather than spectacle. In time, he and Kate Capshaw, the spark from Temple of Doom that waited until life allowed it, built a blended family whose defining feature, by all accounts, is steadiness. Before their wedding, Capshaw converted to Judaism. Spielberg has said her presence strengthened his own connection to faith and heritage. 7 children later, you still hear him define parenting in verbs: protect, guide, respect, rather than in credits. He has a mentor's patience too. Ask Drew Barrymore what it meant to have someone quietly hold the door to adulthood while she walked through it. At 79, he works like a man who never got over the miracle of the job. He talks more about balance now, about health and stamina, and the kind of discipline that keeps curiosity from burning out. But the voice is the same. He likes to say that every film is another chance to say something honest. He's also the first to remind you that awards tarnish and fame fades. The people don't. People are the story, he said recently, and you can track that sentence across his career like a steady line of light. Which loops us back to Reiner and to what this whole scare revealed. Hollywood carries its losses like a city carries weather. Some storms pass, some settle in and change the air for good. What survives, if you do it right, is the work and the way you treated people while you made it. Reiner's films, about friendships that save your life and love that dares you to grow up, aren't built to expire. Spielberg's films, about awe, about moral courage, about families that come apart and find new shapes, aren't either. Together, the two bodies of work feel like a conversation that's been happening for 40 years. What does it mean to be decent in a world that isn't? How do you keep wonder without lying to yourself about the dark? There's a grace in the way Spielberg chose to speak during the rumor cycle. He didn't audition for sainthood. He didn't swat gossip with more gossip. He just put a hand out and said, "Remember the person, remember the films. Remember that hope is a thing you hold carefully, and that friendship, even when it's not built on daily habit, can still be a steady beam." Maybe that's the quiet lesson underneath all the headlines, the one artists like Spielberg and Reiner have been teaching us for years without saying it out loud. You can build entire worlds on a screen, but the work means the most when it reaches across and touches someone else's. It's connection, or it's nothing. And when the noise gets loud, when rumors break like glass or grief turns the day gray, one good story can remind you where to stand. If this moved you, add your voice below. Tell us the Reiner or Spielberg film that caught you at the right moment and wouldn't let go. Share the scene that still lives in your chest. And if you want more deep, human dives into the artists who shaped our imaginations, like, share, and subscribe. We'll be here, following the light where it leads.